Okay, so I was talking about there are a couple of constraints which may delay the response which is coming from a remote or maybe the URL what you're trying to access. And accessing the URL, for example, I hope since you guys are coming from your straight away coming from your HTML training program, you know form submission, right? Um, HTTP post. What's the difference between the HTTP post and GET?
Security and the
How you know that it is secure?
get post six arguments and the
Okay. Okay. So what do you think about this URL? Is it a GET one or post one? It's a GET one. Okay. As we already know the way HTTP handles the data, uh, most popular or most common one is GET and post. GET, the additional payloads goes through the URL itself, separated by question mark and ampersand. So if you notice that lat log equal to, and there is a ampersand location underscore type rooftop blah 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 things are there. And we'll make it quite simple. We don't want a lot of things. This is enough. So in this case, the additional form fields are lat, LAT, and key. So two parameters are, two values being mapped to the respective fields and the value or the response you are getting. So I'm going to write this example for HTTP GET. You would have to write for HTTP POST maybe in the project, but similar, most of the concepts are going to be same, but the example what I'm going to write for HTTP GET alone. Android has a built-in thread handler for web service. It is popularly called as AsyncTask. So I'm going to create a class. I'm writing in the activity itself. So get response from sorry, any name just look like extend async task. It expects 3 arguments to start with. Why we are giving an type here, I'll let you know. Implement abstract methods, it is asking me. It is implementing one method called do background. This is the one which is going to be executed in a non-blocking way. Other one useful one on pre-execute, and another useful one on post-execute. If you notice, this thread is or this async task block gives me to access. Gives me an access to a thread in 3 different ways. One is before calling the URL, pre-execute. Maybe you can initialize the loader at this point, and this is where it is getting connected with the URL. A longer running process, it will run until the response arrive from the server. You can continue the loader, and this is where when the result or when the connection between the server and client disconnects and the data is ready for further processing. So you can put a loader, sorry, saying the loading, and this is where you can complete it. So let us see how we are going to handle that. So this is a variable argument. I hope you know that what is 3 dot signifies. Yeah, variable. So in this case, unlimited or any number of string arguments could be passed. Remember, this particular string, let me make it as a integer. Sorry. So if this integer type means you are sending some data for processing, an integer data you are sending for processing. So this argument should match with this one, but URL is always a string, so I'm going to keep it as a string alone. The response after executing, you may be either getting a JSON text format, or maybe a a bitmap like an image. So if you are expecting an image, you can put a bitmap, make sure the same takes effect. So you can customize your async task, what you are going to send for processing and what you are expecting as a result. So there are various ways, but in our case everything is going to be string. So the URL naturally going to be the string, the response which is going to give is a string, and of course the same string, of course, yeah, this string. So these three block I can access while executing my HTTP call. Okay. HTTP stack has got changed quite a lot at this point. Previously we were using HTTP client which was given by Apache Open Source Foundation. Android was using that for web service communication. Now Android has removed the entire Apache references. Now they are asking us to use a HTTP URL connection which is a built-in one. So I'm going to write that example. First thing we have to make sure URL. So this is the URL I'm trying to access. This is the URL I'm trying to access. I'm just giving the URL name. It is throwing some error. Okay, exceptions are on. Try with try catch block. Chances are there malformed URL is possible because sometime our users will write this way. So the exception will throw automatically. Okay, exception block added. Now HTTP two option HTTPS URL connection, HTTP URL connection. If you look at the URL, it is already having HTTPS. So better I use the HTTP URL connection. URL open connection. This also going to require some sort of exception block. Let's see what is the exception. IO exception. Okay, I just added the exception. Set request method. It's in this case is going to be get. There are various things I can set. What else? Timeout. Okay, read timeout. You can put a timeout. For example, when you have a something, the result has come. In this case, read timeout. But iterating the result takes long time. Maybe it is some wrong data has arrived. You can put a timeout. For example, automatically the blog will exist. The thread will exit and will throw you a timeout error. Maybe some 15 seconds, 15,000 milliseconds and 15 seconds or maybe. So another one, set connect timeout also we will implement. Sometimes the URL won't respond for a longer time. I just give a different value because we want to have a different value, but any value could be. Usually the connection timeout depending on the server. For example, the traditional LAMP server, Apache PHP environment gives a 3 minutes, but it is depending on the server. If the server could not respond you in a specific number of time interval, it will put a timeout. It will disconnect. Hopefully we won't encounter that situation. What else we have? Set do input. This is very important. Set to true because after executing this URL, I'm going to get some data input stream. As soon as I call it, I'm going to receive some data. Most of the time, of course, you are going to receive some data after consuming an URL. I never seen a situation setting this do input to set to false. I really don't see a requirement. Maybe for some requirement they kept it as a argument, but it is recommended to keep it set do input set to true. If you are using HTTP request method set to post, remember if it is post, you will not send the data in this way. I hope you get it. You will not send the data in this way if you are using HTTP post. You will call the URL, you will attach that particular parameters in the header of your HTTP client itself. Usually your form submission happens in that way. Your payloads are getting added to the header HTTP header itself. That's the reason it doesn't show in the URL. So if you are using HTTP post, you may use this one set do output set to true. If you are using HTTP post, okay, if you are using that, make sure you put it, but in my example I am not using it because one of your example you have HTTP post request. I hope at this point HTTPS, let us connect. It made a connection. Now get the input stream, I mean the response. HTTP URL connection get input stream. As soon as the connection is established between the server and your HTTP client, it will receive the input stream. Mean data will start arriving. It's not immediate. It has to be buffered somewhere, and then you can use it for your processing. I hope you know the stream, how it works. Usually byte amount of data which comes and hold, it's going to be kept in some sort of buffer, and when the buffer is ready, then you can read it and use it for your further processing. So the moment the connection is established, you will start getting the input stream. This is a part. It's a blocking call. It is going to take a longer time, but thankfully we have already kept it inside a do background, which is a thread. So now it won't block your UI, but depending on 15 or 20 seconds, 15 seconds we have given a timeout. At least it should run up to that time. If beyond to the time that result does not arrive, mean it will time out. Okay, let me create a buffer. My job is to read, right? It is not the stream you are buffering it. I mean, you are keeping it into a temporary memory. Input stream reader, read your stream. If you are a specific encoding, default encoding is UTF-8, I hope, but if not, you can explicitly give it. So it will encode according to UTF-8 is the most standard encoding for across all the browsers and almost all the HTTP clients. But if you are developer, since you when you start developing your Android application, if you are a developer or SOAP or REST document specify a specific encoding, you may change it, if at all, if the document talks about it. Otherwise, keep it UTF-8. Time to read the buffer. Decrypt the string. Execute the while block until you reach the null value. Mean the buffer will from the top of your document will start reading. Assume input stream is arriving, it will write in a buffer. Assume a notepad, think about a notepad. The value is being added from top to bottom. So you are reading from top to bottom to extract whatever the stream values are there. keep it into a string or wherever if you want. So this is a block. It is going to read line is kept. It's not non-null value. It will start reading the line one by one until it reaches to the null, mean end of the document. We may need one more string builder. It is easy to append. String builder, a kind of an improved string object. I can easily append and keep concatenate over and over. So I'm going to use the string builder, append each line. If you want to add a new line so that it will look better, backslash n also. So every line it will add a new line and attach. Otherwise it will write everything in one single line. But for readable purpose it could be anything. Anyway, we are not going to read it. But if you are typing a log statement, we can see how the responses are. At this point, I'll have entire string builder and the while loop would have quit. Okay, the string builder I'll make it slightly outside. You can define it over here. I need a string output because it is expecting a string once a block finishes its job. So this particular string builder casted to a string. Now when do background method is finished its job, you will end up getting a string. That string is actually the result which you are going to use it for a further processing. Let me put a log. Whatever you are returning here will be automatically captured here. So the same result you can display. Let me put some sort of additional one. Private progress dialog. Okay, I may need a context going ahead. Okay, I'll just declare I'm going to need a context. So context can be passed through constructor. Progress dialog. Title and the message. So let the progress dialog. Dismiss. The moment I call this particular class, progress dialog nothing but a kind of loader as a dialog. It will put and let it execute. Once the execution is done, it will automatically get dismissed itself. So I can get into the block in three different areas. It is pre-execute or constructor, wherever you can think. So just before connecting it, this is after connecting it, and once the connection is over, after getting the this particular block. So three different blocks your async task gives you to access the web service. So how do you call them? Initialize, need a context, execute. When you call it, the async task will start executing. But there is a proper way to do it. I would recommend sending the URL through this way. Since this particular variables will accept more than one string, if you have more than one URL to be processed, you can supply through this way. This is the right approach. Supplying the URL separated by comma if you have more than one URL to process. So automatically, but in this case we are only going to accept one single URL because I have given the index value 0. But if you have more than that, put a for loop and execute, and automatically you will get a respective responses. But this example will only work for one single URL. Time to test it, whether we are getting result or not, I'm not sure. Still executing. Ah, most important thing we forgot. Anyway, let it throw error. Okay. Some sort of errors I am getting. Remember, you are trying to access something. Okay, yeah, some error has come. It is because of this reason you are trying to access again something privacy related which may cost the user. You need to ask for a permission to access internet, because while installing the application the user will come to know, okay, this particular application will access internet. You have to put this permission, otherwise it won't work. Let's see. Okay, it put the loader for some time, and if you notice the log, it received the entire response. The whole response has arrived. In fact, in this case, we have to pick the formatted address alone. We have to display it somewhere. But if you notice the way it worked, just I'll let me close and open. Put a loader, and the moment result arrives, it dismisses itself. Depending on your internet connection, this process will take time, but it seems to be a simple one. I have some good internet speed. It immediately arrived. So it's a right approach to notify the user something is going on, so the user will not touch anything. But the progress bar is an optional one. Without that also, 100% your application will work without even blocking even a single UI thread. Anyway, time to display them. Let me display that into the action bar itself because I don't want to touch any specific code. Okay, this text view will make use of it. When you display over here, text size, make it some 20. Okay, we'll display here. Okay, we would have to make it global. Okay, here time to process your JSON. Before passing the JSON, you guys should have seen how to pass JSON in your HTML session. Similar concept, nothing much is changed. What's that? So if you look at this JSON object gives a what is that? Results is an array. Looks like there is a square box. So results is going to be an array. Inside this array, there is an object. There are a couple of objects. One is address component, but I am just interested on the formatted address alone. So let me retrieve that alone. JSON object. Create your JSON object from the received result, nothing but a string, and it is asking me some sort of
Show the code on
which one.
that.
Okay, so assuming the object has arrived, inside the JSON object, what we have results. Okay, it is a JSON array. Retrieve the results, which is going to give you a JSON array. Iterate over. Iterate it. Okay, we'll put a log. There may be more than one formatted address possible. So, so what is the object? It is this is another JSON object. Get the string value called formatted address. I just went through the JSON tree, try to parse them. Just pay attention to the JSON format and you can easily build this one. So the very first one, building the JSON object from the received string. So this is a block. This is where we have built the JSON object from the received string. This is the result. How do you know? Because that format is, by seeing it is not, because they are giving it as an array. You see the square bracket is here. Oh, sorry, here. They are supplying it as an array. If it is one or two, chances are there multiple addresses. If you see the multiple formatted addresses are there. Each one is going with a lesser accuracy. If you notice, the first one is having detailed one. As it degrades, maybe the possibility local area. There are more than one formatted address is there. If you want to retrieve everything, you can retrieve. But if you are interested on one data, what you can do, web result set text. Maybe with I mean outside of the loop we could have kept it. If you are not interested to retrieve all the results, you could have made sure the very first one display into your text view. So as soon as the result arrived, we are going to see the formatted address in our code. Hopefully should arrive. It's taking time. So now it is retrieved the readable address displaying in the text view. So a standard way of retrieving the results from the web using the HTTPS URL connection. You can either make a get or post connection. Once you make the connection with the server, handle the stream. This is where things are going to be slightly complicated. Remember, I've set the set do input to true because I am going to handle the input stream which is going to come after processing the result for a further processing. So it is very important to set it true. Or if you are sending some data along with this HTTP URL connection, or especially for a post, because in this case the data has already gone through the URL itself, so we don't need to send anything. But if you are sending some data through HTTP post, make sure you set do output set to true. Before creating it, build your output stream, use the buffer writer, write those data and send it before.
What would set input for a signal?
This block won't work.
When we said do input false, what would we set it? Do input false. Does it have any use?
No use, that's all I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. In my experience, I never seen an instance where I do not handle the input stream. In fact, even developers would have written that we discussed. But you can block this also if required. Okay, if it is do output set to true, this particular get won't take reflect, automatically it will become a get post. So if you are setting it to true, make sure you are using HTTP request method set to post. Here you need to add couple of statements to build your post object that you can investigate and identify, but it is same procedure to do the same in HTTP post. So when the result arrived, being is a JSON object, we are processing them, retrieving those value. Hopefully in the log, I have all the values retrieved because I am just taking iterating over all the items. So the first one is having the highest accuracy as rest of the thing goes into a lowest one. So the first one I am displaying in the UI, and you have your HTTP request done through AsyncTask. So this is a simple example. I'll upload the source code. You can use it for further hands-on testing.